Professor Ramamurthy. But the point is, where do I start? Where do I finish? It's not very simple for me, especially, and having known him all my life. But we have to introduce him to the generations who may not have had the opportunity to interact with him. Many of us have had that opportunity, and we are grateful for that. And I offer this short film as a samarpanam to my guru. And I will introduce the orator for 2025, Sri Gopal Krishna Gandhi. The truth is, I have been trying to get him on the stage for the last 3 to 4 years, and because of his busy schedules, somehow the dates have never matched, and I'm really thankful that he's here today. Thank you, sir. The grandson of Mahatma Gandhi and Sri Rajgopalachari, Sri Gopal Krishna Gandhi was born in April 1945 in Delhi to Sri Devdas and Lakshmi Gandhi. He is the Distinguished Professor of History, Department of History and Politics at the Ashoka University, Sonpet, Haryana, and the Distinguished Visiting Professor at the National Law University, Hyderabad. An administrator by training with the IAS Tamil Nadu cadre, his working career has included public administration, diplomacy, and the exercise of constitutional responsibility. He has been Secretary to the Governor of Tamil Nadu, Secretary to the Vice President of India, and Secretary to the President of India, and then the Director of the Nehru Center at the Indian High Commission of India, London. He has also served as the High Commissioner for India in South Africa, Lesotho, and Sri Lanka, and the Ambassador of India in Norway and Ireland. He was then the Governor of the state of West Bengal from 2004 to 2009 and served a short stint as an acting Governor of Bihar. The University of Natal, South Africa conferred a doctorate of laws honoris causa. So did the University of Peradeniya, Sri Lanka, and then the University of North Orissa and many other such universities. He received the Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan Award from the University of Mysore in 2016, the Lal Bahadur Shastri Award in 2016, and the Rajiv Gandhi Sadbhavna Award in 2018. Sri Gopal Krishna Gandhi is also a columnist with the Hindustan Times, the Telegraph, and writes from time to time in the Hindu. He and his wife, Tara Gandhi, an ornithologist and a nature conservationist, divide their time between Chennai, Bangalore, and Kunu. They have 2 daughters and 3 granddaughters, and there's so much more, but he warned me that please keep it short because audience listening time is, the attention span is very short, so don't take it beyond a few lines. So, sir, it is our honor to have you address us and deliver the V. Ramamurthy Oration 2025.
Dr. Shreya for his generous introduction, and thank you for the invitation to be here today with all of you. I must commence with offering my respect and tribute to the memory of Dr. V. Ramamurthy and Dr. Indira Ramamurthy, who are the inspiration for our host today and for so much that has gone into the planning of this conference as well. I must not omit to mention Dr. Ramamurthy's colleague, Dr. Rajagopal, who was his anesthetist, for I know how crucial anesthesia is to surgery. Dr. Rajagopal was a remarkable person whom I had the privilege of meeting and knowing. There are 5 persons, I believe, 5 categories of persons before whom one has to speak only the truth and nothing but the truth. One's mother, one's wife, one's auditor, one's lawyer and one's doctor. For if one does not speak the truth to these five, the truth will be found out by them in any case. And if it takes time to be found out, it will take that much more time for the truth to remain truthful. Otherwise it can do great harm. And so seeing this large gathering of doctors, I have to speak the truth, which is, you must reserve your applause to what may follow after this. The title of this afternoon's conversation, The Wily Wheel of Anger, requires me to speak this truth. That I am here today not as somebody who has got a grip over anger, not at all. I am a patient of anger before this gathering of doctors who have seen many conditions of the human mind, including anger. But I must also say that I am aware of the fact that every patient of anger has to also be a doctor of anger. For if she or he does not treat anger, she or he might as well give up on life. And may I say with all respect to the doctors present here, that just as patients of anger have to be doctors of anger, doctors have also to admit that they can very often be patients of anger. If a surgeon lifts his or her hand like this in the operation theatre, expecting a delicate instrument to land on her or his hand, and it does not, it is perfectly possible that for a few moments there may be a spike of anger, and then God save the patient. As a patient of anger, I know certain symptoms of anger, of which elevated systoles, missed heartbeats, trembling fingers, parched mouth, and very often a loss of physical balance are most prominent. The tongue and mouth going dry are one phenomenon, but the mind then is capable of unleashing a torrent of words from this subconscious dictionary of abusing words that lie dormant in the mind. It is well known that words that would embarrass us if seen written against our names are the kind of words that do escape us. We have in our midst today a very distinguished judge, former judge. She knows exactly, Justice Prakash, what abuse means, even in terms of penologies and criminal codes. I will not inflict on this gathering quotations from others, for that is a very tedious form of speaking and a very tedious form of listening. But I will say this, that the great, truly great word in Tamil has words to describe anger, in which Alvar says that of the many slips on the slope of life's slippery slips, the many slips, on the slope of life's slippery slips, the worst is the careless word that passes through our lips. And then he says, chapter 13, the blistering welt of a fiery rod unhealed, but the withering lash of his scathing tongue will never, ever heal. That is what we are capable of doing. I have a total of 20 minutes, for which I have spent now more than 7. So I'll keep a very strict watch on my watch. Just to say that there are basically 3 kinds of anger, plus 1. And I will start with the plus 1 first, which is anger at oneself. Anger over oneself at what one has done or said, which is very often behind one's show of anger. One can be blisteringly angry at something or somebody, but the root of it is anger with oneself. I am certainly speaking for myself. But there are, as the doctor in oneself would say, ways of getting over one's anger with oneself by the very simple method of remorse, apology, and atonement. There's a famous song by Elton John called "Sorry is the hardest word." Sorry is the hardest word. It truly is. I do not know if in the gathering today here there are delegates from Australia. I know that in the conference there are delegates from Australia. But if they are still at this session today present, I would like to say that the apology given by Prime Minister Kevin Rudd to the original residents of Australia, in which he said, "I am sorry," and he said it in Parliament, "I am sorry for what we have done." He was sublimating the anger at oneself of a superior Australian thought and presenting it to history. I must also say on this occasion something which is very real and very touching and has to be said very honestly. As I said, we are in a gathering of doctors and patients of anger. In the year 1989, I believe in the year 1999, terrible episode took place in India, in which a great family of Australians lost its life. I shall not go into details, but it was a terrible, terrible occasion. But what I remember is not the suffering of the fire, but the lady who survived, the wife of the person who was his children had. She said, "I have no anger in me. I cannot believe how a human being can possibly rise to that level and say, I have no anger in me." I bow my head to that family. They happen to be Australian. And today, the Australians present here today, I would like to say that as a country and a society, all of us felt deeply grieved and hurt, and offered our apologies, which I repeat today. Anger was sublimated. There is personal anger, there is individual anger. And the personal and individual anger can become collective anger. And collective anger is also seen very often as anger coming from the state. But in the aspect of personal anger, insult of one's appearance, to insult somebody for how she or he looks, how she or he is attired, how she or he works, insult of one's profession, insult of one's language, one's identity, one's religion, and of course, insult of one's family. These are triggers of huge anger, which we must understand as being at the root of many forms of anger. And the wily way of anger has the wiliest of them in the form of fire for fire, return anger for anger, vengeance perpetuating anger. I have not been able to control my anger in many of these situations, though fortunately I have been saved some of the insults that I have mentioned. The perceived threat to one's ethnicity, to symbols of one's own religious identity, to events and symbols of food, of festivals in India, trigger mass anger. And they cannot but trigger those bursts of anger. And in the interests of law and order, the state shows its own kind of anger to suppress the inflammation of human feelings. Consequence of court orders, convictions and sentencings also lead to what may be called an expression of anger in the shape of controlled and legal immobilizations of persons. War in its many faces is a sign of anger. Investigative overdrives, and custodial torture are forms of what may be called not acceptable state anger. But in all these aspects, anger is in its deleterious aspect. As we now come to the final, say 5 or 7 minutes, to say that anger has its uses as well. This is a slightly unexpected thing to say. Can anger possibly have some good in it? Let me say why I think there is good news in anger too. It is like this. When Nelson Mandela was in prison, an occasion when he was hugely angry, let us not make the mistake of thinking that Nelson Mandela was born with a halo on his head and he said, peace at any cost. I forgive everybody. I have no malice. Of course he had no malice. Of course he forgave a lot. But his forgiving came from his sublimating his anger into that level of his own evolution. He speaks of a particularly gross commander-in-chief who was deputed to Robben Island where Mandela spent most of his incarceration. This commander-in-chief was brutal beyond belief and used words which we know in our society in India. Concentrate on what are called swear words implicating one's mother, one's sister, and oneself. I need not dilate upon it. Also, it is a fact, and we are all adults who have experienced much of life, in my case, with very little of it ahead of me. And so I will say this, that the factory of anger has a line of products which is called swear words, and those swear words have a further line of products which concentrate, alas, and I will be forgiven for saying so, on human genitalia. This particular commander looked at Mandela, referred to Mandela's mother, and in Mandela's own language used an Afrikaans word which was in Mandela's words a vulgar term for an intimate part of a woman's anatomy. What do you expect a man like Mandela to do? He was furious, and he proceeded like any human being would to get at this commander physically. I think Mandela was fortunate in that the commander, seeing this man approach, quickly got into a car and disappeared from the scene. Otherwise, he would have been, I think, very sorry for himself. And Mandela probably would have had his jail term extended by so many more years. But then, Mandela being Mandela says, and I use the word wily way of anger, not quoting him, that's my phrase. But wily ways can also be very wise ways. And so he just ruminated on what had happened. And Mandela says as only he could have. Later, after my anger abated, I realized that Badenhorst, that was a commander, he was not evil. His inhumanity had been foisted upon him by an inhuman system. He behaved like a brute because he was rewarded for his brutish behavior. And so when we are likely to be provoked by something which is hideous, we should remember that the person who is provoking us is very likely to be a victim of circumstances more in need of our pity than of our anger. And in saying so and doing so, we save ourselves from returning his compliment in his own very debased coin. Friends, I shall not tax your patience more beyond saying that in the Quran again is a couplet which I believe is the greatest of the Quran's couplets. It is not the best known, but believe me, it is the greatest, for it is about anger. Not to say, don't be angry. I've already quoted two Qurans which say, don't be angry and why should not? But this Quran, 1062, is anger itself. I said, some good can come to anger. Valdover is hugely angry. Yes, Valdover himself is hugely angry. Not because somebody has insulted him, he is too big for that. But because he cannot bear the thought of poverty. That he cannot bear the thought that somebody should have to beg. And he says in 1062, and I give an English translation. As you know, the Quran starts with the Creator. And in 1062, he is again addressing the Creator. He says, may He, the Creator, yes, may He who has so fashioned this world unjust, may He that men should have to beg, may He, like them, know what it means to beg and wander accursed. If the great reformers of the world have been moved by the sight of injustice and poverty amounting to begging, moved to a level of anger, then that anger can be called, just as there is a good cholesterol and a bad cholesterol, there can be a good anger and anger as a friend can work wonders, provided one knows how to hold it and how to use it. I returned to my being a patient, perfectly liable to lose my anger lose my temper, resort to anger, and if I was amongst you, I would be on the verge of getting a little